Hello and welcome to the Decrypting Crypto podcast. I'm Matthew Howells-Barby and it is June the 12th, 2025. I'm flying solo on today's episode. We've missed a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Austin and I have been tied up on a bunch of different things, and Austin is still, probably as we speak, sipping a drink that I would love to be sipping on a nice hot beach somewhere. But there has been far too much going on in the space for us to leave you hanging. We've got a whole host of things to discuss, and I'm going to keep this as a somewhat short episode, but just giving you everything you need to stay up to date. We had May CPI data. We're about to get PPI data by the time this episode goes out. We've had what seems like IPO season in the crypto space, which definitely going to talk a little bit about. And that's been fueled by what many are dubbing right now as stablecoin summer. A few things that we can talk about there, some M&A, and we'll talk briefly about what's going on in the bizarre four walls of GameStop. But let's start with the May CPI report, because last month, from an equities perspective, I mean, the S&P has had one of its best months in recent times. We pushed all the way back up to 6,000 on that index for the first time since February. We're starting to see a lot more positivity when it comes to the outlook for both inflation as well as the trade war, that we're seeing Trump stepping back, cooling off a little bit. We had talks in London between China and the US government 2 days ago that seemed to at least not go bad. And we're seeing deals being made across the board that are softening some of the chaos that we've had. Now, there is always tomorrow, but today we're generally feeling a little bit more positive about that whole setup. That said, there's still a number of areas where there's cause for concern. One positive piece, at least, is the May CPI report. So we saw that headline CPI came in just below forecast. So it's forecast that we would see year over year 3.4% growth in CPI. We saw 3.3%. That is definitely positive from an inflation perspective, and is the fourth month in a row where we have came in under forecast. That's good news. Does it mean we're out of the woods? Absolutely not. But this is positive signal, at least. And if we exclude food and energy out of that, which is referred to as core CPI, that also came in under. So 3.4% based on the forecast of 3.5. This is good news. When we think about tariffs now, which, as anyone that's listening and has followed the podcast, we've talked a lot about all of these data points, the tariff situation, inflation, rates, and how that all plays a huge role in global markets, but in particular the crypto markets. We've seen that the market is now pricing in 2 rate cuts this year in the US, where we'd started to get a little bit more cautious, mainly driven by future inflation expectations, which were starting to feel like that's going to kind of come maybe in the next few months from all of the tariffs that we've seen come in and go. And it takes a while for companies to pass on those tariffs and the charges into consumers. So I think people are cautiously optimistic, at least, that for now things don't seem so bad. We saw things like used car prices fall, shelter inflation. It's still kind of sticky, but it's easing off a little bit. And with energy, airline fares, they're kind of declining. So off the back of this, stocks, crypto rallied. Importantly, treasury yields started to cool off. We have a big 30-year auction going out to today. We will see how that fares. We've got the Fed rate cut decision in June. I think almost certainly they're still going to hold. But the markets are pricing in a much higher chance of a September cut, which, barring some additional crazy new things happening on the tariff side, I'm feeling optimistic that maybe we could start to see something like a 1/4 point cut in September, which would be very bullish for risk assets, crypto in particular. So positive signal. Now, talking about positive signal, I want to dig in a bit into the crypto side of things on the IPOs. It really feels like IPO season has fully came upon us, with Circle, the stablecoin issuer, really setting the scene, and I think turbocharging many of the crypto companies that were looking to potentially file an S1 either later this year or next year, maybe thinking, hey, we might get that timeline and just bring it forward a little bit. We know that Circle were planning on doing this in Q1 and actually like launching their IPO, and they delayed. Then we had this kind of whole craziness around maybe they were going to be acquired prior to the IPO. And wow, they had a blockbuster of an IPO. IPO'd in early June, so the 2nd, I think it was. And they are up over 250%, which is pretty incredible to be completely honest. If I have a little look at, let's just look at what the market cap, I think we're at close to 30 billion in market cap, which is a huge valuation. I think Circle, their revenue, I mean, the EBITDA that they have is far lower than Coinbase, Robinhood, other like comparative companies that would be priced in similar ways, but where Circle is really benefiting and is punching far above its weight on a EBITDA multiple is stablecoins. And we are seeing this huge flood of interest into stablecoins. And one of the things I think that's really been driving this has been the Genius Act. So you might be familiar with some of this. If not, the Genius Act is actually yesterday just passed a Senate vote. It's a bill focused all around developing legislation in the US for stablecoins and giving a federal level framework for stablecoin issuers. TLDR, a lot of what's in it requires one-to-one reserves across all stablecoins. There's going to be more of a banking level rigor to the auditing process. There'll be really regular audits. What will be expected, at least from a consumer side, is more transparency into the reserves and what is being done with those reserves. You have to have registration with federal regulators, and what this enables as well is it leaves some room for like state chartered entities to issue stablecoins. For example, Circle via NYDFS. So overall, Circle is definitely a big winner. I mean, the likes of Paxos and many other issuers are seeing this as a big win. There is definitely some vocal opposition, even in crypto, which I think there's some. If I were to summarize the criticism in crypto, is that this bill is being rushed through, and some of the concerns lie more in how this could impact decentralization moving forward. There's concerns that some of the language in the bill and the way in which KYC requirements are being structured could lead to future interpretation around non-custodial wallets requiring KYC. But all of this is, somewhat speculation at this point. I think we'll start to see and we already are seeing this, right? An enormous land grab in the US for dominance in the stablecoin market. We've seen Trump with USD1 or $1. I'm trying to remember which one the stablecoin is, that they funded the Binance investment, $2 billion, I think they did, which immediately jumped that circulating supply up. Expect more and more discussion around stablecoins, companies launching stablecoins, banks launching stablecoins. We've already seen some big announcements on that front. But I think overall, the net view is that this is a positive for the crypto space. Next up, it still needs to go through like full Senate consideration, then to the House before Trump can actually sign and enact it into federal law. But the fact that it passed by a good majority yesterday in the Senate, it was voted 68-30. It's looking highly likely. So a lot happening there. And then, in the IPO side of things, this has just been fueling a lot of the growth on Circle. Every time I see a take that's, Circle is going to tank back down and retrace, it seems to climb higher and higher. I think as I'm speaking right now, Circle is up 10% on the day again. So expect more IPOs. Gemini just kind of confidentially filed their S1 bullish as well. They tried to IPO actually. They tried to go public via a SPAC deal that was in the height of the last cycle, and they delayed it through. And I think by the time they got into 2022, the market had started to sour, and by 2023 they completely called it a day. But now this is a fresh IPO attempt, and I think they will likely be going public soon, along with Gemini, along with many other crypto companies. I think that's given them the confidence that they can go in at a strong valuation. Now, time will tell really how this all plays out, but huge amount being done. Not only are we seeing IPO season, we are seeing a ton of M&A. Now, M&A and even a lot of like big venture deals, it's been a ghost town since the end of 2022, basically since the FTX collapse. I can't really think of a major acquisition that happened in the the crypto space since maybe the end of since like end of 2022 through to 2024, maybe outside of Stripe's push again into stable coins when they acquired Bridge. But Stripe's at it again, and we are now starting to see them go even further in. They acquired Privy, which is a decentralized wallet app. They have a real focus on like embedded wallets that are self-custody, so they often integrate into platforms to offer like embedded non-custodial wallet solutions. So if you ever used Friendtech, what a throwback, things like Blackbird, they all integrated Privy. I mean, Privy's a great product, and now this just further brings Stripe, which has been a big advocate of crypto for a number of years now, further and further down the stack. It seems like they're just vertically integrating all areas where they're going to eventually, I think, get to a truly crypto native experience on their platform. So, we go all the way through from like onboarding, payments, identity, bringing that into the world of Web 2 and traditional fintech rails. This, I think, is like really, really great. We'll probably start to see, full self-custody wallet infrastructure built into like checkout and developer tools. So this is going to enable a lot of, in my opinion, innovation in the commerce side of things. And again, all comes back to stablecoin summer. We've seen a lot of M&A outside of this. We had the Deribit deal with Coinbase. Obviously, at Kraken, where I am, we did the NinjaTrader deal. There's been a huge amount. I think Jupiter did that big deal with Moonshot, and there's going to be more and more happening here. This is great for the crypto space in general. More investment, more of an incentive for builders to come in, really start executing. We'll start to see huge amounts more when it comes to venture capital flooding in. Again, it's the lifeblood for the grassroots of development and innovation in the space. So really, really positive. What has kind of been crazy, though, is we look at all of this, and I spend a lot of time looking at the different flows of capital within crypto, especially looking at kind of the spot volume side of things. I have the benefit of being at Kraken, where we have our own data that we can look at to get an understanding of what is the sentiment of actually buying public tokens and buying crypto, and what kind of buyers are moving the market and really coming in and taking advantage of a lot of this hype. And we had, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, a new BTC all-time high. It was challenging that again, even yesterday. I think we pushed up towards 110K. ETH has been really seeing some strong momentum alongside this. Solana, it's looking like the first Solana spot ETFs could be approved in the next few days. Despite all of this, what is almost certain is that retail is not here yet. Even just looking at the kind of search behavior in Google around terms like Bitcoin go not even close to what we were starting to see in December and January, December of last year and January of this year. So while there's been a lot of really exciting stuff on the institutional side and the IPO market and on the tech side of things, I still think we're in the very early innings here. And this is one of the reasons, almost certainly, why we're yet to actually see a real altcoin season. And most of the gains that we're seeing in crypto are being consolidated into Bitcoin. And now, to a certain extent, and lesser extent over the space of this year, the likes of ETH, Sol, XRP, etc., that are more institutionally viable to acquire in size. So I think a lot of this is coming from like the larger buyers versus a lot of retail. I expect that will start to change. I think this is a really exciting moment in the market. This period of time, June, is not renowned for having a lot of flows and capital coming into the space. I don't expect us to be kind of pulling up trees in June and July with like crazy euphoria. But as we start to move into August, September, especially if we see a rate cut in September, I really believe that this is when we're going to start to see the potential for euphoria and outsized gains, and a few tokens potentially coming up and challenging all-time highs. So lots of things to be really positive about. One thing I'll wrap up on, because we've covered quite a lot so far, is GameStop. the fact we're even talking about GameStop probably tells you a little bit of where we're heading towards in this market. But they recently bought $25 million in Bitcoin. They disclosed that in their latest filing. They are now raising a convertible note, $1.75 billion in convertible notes, that is, explicitly to purchase Bitcoin. This is the strategy, as in MicroStrategy strategy. And we're seeing this huge explosion in Bitcoin and crypto treasury companies where their whole sole purpose is to raise debt to procure a treasury in the form of Bitcoin, or we're seeing this with ETH and others in Sol and in others baskets of tokens. We'll see how this plays out. I saw that GameStop was down around 10% at the open after they made the announcement of the first purchase. So mixed reaction. I don't know if people feel as confident in GameStop's ability to do this. I remember back in last cycle where, what was it? They launched their own NFT marketplace or something like that. GameStop being GameStop, you love to see it though. It is, they're going to do some crazy things. And I think actually we'll probably do a whole episode digging in a little bit more into these like Bitcoin treasury companies. And there's, similar to, we're talking about IPOs, there is like a new treasury business launching on like a daily basis. This is either going to be a major value driver in the next kind of 2 to 5 years, or it's going to be one of those things that we look back on as a huge red flag and we laugh about it in the future after a bunch of them collapse. But it's way too early to tell. There's a lot of nuance there. Certainly GameStop is not representative of that whole cohort. I think some great, really interesting people building in that space. But overall, really exciting few weeks. I think we've got some even more exciting weeks ahead. We'll be keeping an eye on PPI and how the market responds to that. Again, I don't think we're going to see a rate cut in June, but if we can see more progress being made on the trade deal side of things, next we're going to shift focus into the EU. I think that delay we had in the EU trade deal comes up for renewal July, I think. And I think both parties are saying they're probably not going to get to an agreement before then. Expect a little bit of turbulence and, as always, a bit more volatility. But I think price action is probably going to be somewhat muted through this month on the majors. And as we start to move further in, we'll obviously be reporting a lot on any developments. But I feel pretty bullish. So with that, we'll wrap things up and we'll be back next week. I think we might have Austin back next week. And we're going to do a few through the summer, few interview episodes with really interesting people that we can deep dive into different topics. Maybe we'll do it on the Bitcoin treasury side of things as well. And yeah, so expect a lot more of that to come. All right. See you all next week.